Alright guys, I promised to make a video on showing how to override ATF Colors. I've done a different tact a little bit from what my original idea was. I am still in a very noisy environment and a non-ideal place for creating videos, so guys, it is what it is. Hopefully it's good enough. So what I've ended up doing is creating a different scenario where what we have is user brand colors. I'm going to show you what that means. So at the moment, what I'm seeing on the screen is my default colors. So the normal ATF colors I've got on the top bar up here, and that is just colors that will not change between brands. So I'm thinking of the idea where, let's say, for example, you've got a hub where you've got your own branding colors for your hub, but then you've got users that belong to maybe companies, and those companies have their own colors, so we can have separate colors for those companies. So let's have a look here at what actually happens. At the moment, I've got everything as my default colors. If I go into my profile and I change my brand to my brand and save that, and then I have a look at the front end and refresh, I've got a different logo. The colors behind it, so there's blue color at the top and that orangey color doesn't change because that's my brand, but the logo changes to say this is the company that this user belongs to, and this is the colors for the company that user belongs to. Let's try the other brand that I've created here. So we go to my another brand, update that profile there, and refresh. We have a different logo, different set of colors. We still have the same colors for my background here, same orange here, because that is my brand logo, so my brand colors, but this is the company's brand colors. Now, the way we do this is we create brands. So in here, I've got a CPT for brands. Here's my brands. If I go to my brand, edit that, I've got my brand logo for the footer, primary, secondary, and tertiary colors. If we go to the, oops, not the add new brand, we're all brands. We go to the, we've got different logos, a different set of colors. And then you saw in the user profile, we basically select which brand this user belongs to. So which company or brand. You can call these companies, you can call them brands, whatever you want. Now, in ACF, what we have is a single post type, which is our brand's post type. And in here, it is just a simple brand. We've disabled all the features except for the title. And I think under the visibility, we exclude from search because we don't want this to show up in archives or being searched for. This is really just for styling. So that's that. We also allow in here, where is it? I'm just looking for it in the general visibility permissions. Something in here where we can actually have, no, I'm thinking of something. Sorry, I'm not used to ACF, to be quite honest with you. I'm used to using MetaBox, but I'm going to use ACF because it comes with ACF AT if you've purchased it some time ago. I can't remember the date. So I'm going to use that just as a very simple case. So in here we have some field groups. And the field groups we've got as our brand fields. And it's the logo, footer, and the logo and footer are just image fields. And then we've got 3 color pickers with the names brand primary color, brand secondary color, etc. And this is important because we need that for our code that I've currently got in WPCodeBox, which I'll share in a gist for you. And then, so this is the 3 colors and the logos. And then in our user to brand, so I've just user greater than brand, so it's user to brand. All I'm doing there is putting a post object in there and using my brand colors, brands as my post type, and then just putting this on my user forms, and that gives us the profile selector in our user forms. So that's pretty much what it is. There's a bit to this, so I'm going to try and work through this. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to start with a brand new site. I'm going to install AT, enable ACF from AT, do my basic settings, You can skip past all that if you're already used to that. And then I'm going to use the code from my gist, which I'll share out. I'm just going to gist over here, which I'll share. And then we'll start from scratch. I might even install Bugfoo and show you some tips for debugging in there. So it's going to be a fairly extensive video covering quite a few bases. I'll probably have to put some markers in there so you can skip through it if you want to. Okay, so let's start from creating a brand new site. So I'm going to go into my ZipWP here. I'm going to just try and see if I can drag my little toolbar out of the way there. I'm going to create a new site, blank website. I'll call this temp color demo, for want of a better word, create my site. I'll leave this in real time so you can see exactly how long this is taking. There are some little quirks with ZipWP. Sometimes when you create a new site and then you log in, you get a 404, and then it'll work. You'll also get a dangerous site warning from Google sometimes, which you can ignore because it's just picking up the URLs incorrectly. See what it does this time. Oh, this time it worked perfectly, so made a little liar out of me. So I'm not going to do too much with settings in here. I'm just going to install my theme. So I'm going to install bricks, add that. Already got these downloaded to make it a little bit quicker. There's my bricks. Install that. Okay, does take a little while. Actually, here we go. Activate the theme. I'm not going to bother setting it up just yet. I'll just install the plugins. Let's go to my plugins. Add plugins. And upload. On. Oh, hold on, just get that. Might just get that thing out of the way shortly. And we want WPCodeBox. Install that. Just going to dismiss that to get it out of the way. Go back to my plugins. So otherwise it'll keep annoying us. Add another plugin. We're going to add this time Advanced Seamer. Okay, and I'm going to add Bugfoo in here, which is searched from here. You don't need to download it. It's part of the WordPress repository. Okay, go to our plugins and just activate all of those. Okay, so we're going to go to bricks, license. I'll probably have to blur this out because I'm working from a single laptop screen. Okay, we'll go to AT license, do the same. All right. Okay, so let's go to the bricks basic settings and we'll just run through very quick settings. It's just a demo, so we're just going to go through the basics. We want SVG uploads, disable that, we want that, want that. Leave those. I like smooth scroll. What else do we want? So we don't need the filters for this demo. Don't need any of that. Don't need to worry about templates in the builder. We want to open a dashboard from the new page. We don't want this element spacing ever, ever, ever. So we're going to enable these. So I'm just rushing through this. You do what you do. We want the render dynamic data. Always like having that, and disable the default WordPress themes. I always have this enabled. In performance, I always have that disabled by default. We normally disable that, but in this case we won't, because it's just a demo. Disable jQuery migrate, cache, disable the chaining. This doesn't work properly, but we'll enable it anyway. And that's it. Save those settings. Okay, the AT license, AT theme settings. Let's go through those. And we're just going to tidy some things up here. We're not going to use any of this for the demo, so we're going to disable all that. Use that. We're going to use that. So we'll just leave these things here. Go to our builder tweaks for classes and styles. What do we want to do here? We want our AT color picker. We want to disable the sync element labels. I just don't like it. Some of you might. I just prefer to name my elements myself, not have that automatically happen for me. I'll leave everything else here. I probably would change some of these other things, but just for this quick demo, I'm going to do that. What else do we want in here? I like this persistent element space, link spacing, which is good. I like having my color pop-up set to raw by default and displays a list. I like that. Won't worry about any of this other stuff, but I do want to get rid of this syncing. There's another sync here. Sync the header text. I'm going to get rid of that. Okay, and then in my global settings, miscellaneous, I'm going to disable this disabling of the ACF menu. So I bought AT pretty much when it first came out. So the license allows me to use ACF Pro. If you don't have an early version of AT, you might have to buy your own ACF license. I don't usually use ACF. I usually use MetaBox, but I just wanted to keep this really, really simple here. So I'm going to use ACF. So that's my settings done. Hit the save. I'm done with my AT settings. I go to my pages, add a new page. Okay, we're just going to call this, oops, hit that too quickly. Let's go back. I'm going to rename this here. I want to call it Bricks 8. I want to call this temp colors. Okay, publish that and edit that with bricks. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is set up some frameworks. We're going to go into AT. I've got a bunch of dogs barking here. Sorry, guys. Go into AT. I want all of my global classes, global variables. I only want my AT framework colors and contextual colors. I want all of my classes, all of my theme styles. Don't need them all, but we'll add them anyway. Global CSS, and might as well add the recipes in there as well. Save, done, save. And we need to refresh here because I'm not sure what happened, whether it's AET or whether it's bricks. But if we don't hit the refresh, we don't get the current theme set up. All right, so we have some colors. So I'm going to publish on it. I thought it published before. We just drag this out a bit. So when we're looking at our colors, we've got a bit more space. So there's my default AT framework colors. So the first thing I'm going to do is just create a dummy header. I'm not going to basically create a theme header. I'm just going to create a basic header just so we can have a bit of a play with this. I've got my little toolbars in the way here. I find it really difficult working from a single screen at times on my laptop. So I'm just going to put in a section here. We're going to call that our basic header. Okay, we're going to put a container in there, maybe call it a row. In that row, we're going to stick in let's put an image there, we'll call that a logo. And then I'm going to use, we haven't created a nav, so I'm just going to use a nested nav. So just one of these, just so we got something to work with. Take that nestable off there because we're going to create some classes for that. Okay, so we've got a basic structure here. So I'm going to right click on my header and I'm going to use my class converter to create my BEM classes. Create that. My row, allow here. That's the first time we use it, we get the allow, have to press the allow. I want that to be a row. And I want to line the cross axis that way, and I want to have space between to push my nav to the end. Now in this nav here, I'm going to use basic logo. So I'm just going to go into, not the nav, sorry, the logo. I'm going to go into select an image. I've got some images in my downloads here, which I've downloaded. So I'm just going to use this first logo websim image. Like that. And we'll set the sizing on that to be, I'd probably use a logo element normally, but just on here, I'm going to set my size to be width of like 200 pixels. There we go. That'll do. On our basic editor, now we've got our, because we've got a section here. And by the way, when you create a header, don't use a section. You don't need a section for a header because it's already inside a header. And it makes no sense for it to be a section. But in this case, I'm just creating a dummy section. So I'm going to get rid of my top and bottom panel. I was using my gutter size, my gutter for the top and bottom. Now let's create a background. It's going to use one of my, right click on here, I'm going to use one of my primary colors, maybe a primary there, just so we can see that there's some primary color related to our brand. I might actually put a, just so we can see we've got some colors here. I might also add a border at the bottom of that, and we'll make that, say, 4 pixels, solid, and we're going to right click on our color there and use our secondary. So we've got the secondary color at the bottom. We don't want that at the top. What am I doing there? We've got a bit of a bug. I don't know if it's AT or the latest bricks, but when I click this, it disappears. So let's get rid of that, make that 0, 0. It's just started happening, so I'm thinking it might be the latest AT update. I'm not sure yet. Okay, so we've got some color for our brand colors, that is. So we've got some color there ready to go. And there we go. There's a basic start. Now what we're going to do is we're going to create some colors that will be used for brands, and we're going to then create some sections to show what those colors look like. So the first thing I'm going to do is go back into my colors here. I'm going to create a new palette. So I'm going to create a new palette here. I'm going to call this brand colors. Doesn't matter what you call this here. What's important is that you put the word brand and then a dash. I think it's brand dash. It might be brands dash. I'm going to check that when I actually have a look at it. And we need primary. We need secondary. We need tertiary. And we need primary text. And I'll show you what happens with this later. It automatically calculates that. Primary text, secondary text. And tertiary text. All right, so let's just set some color on that. Let's create a color. Maybe that's our primary. Maybe we'll go for a kind of maybe this purplish blue there. Secondary, let's go for more of a different kind of, maybe it's a different type of purple. And for a tertiary, let's go for some sort of accent highlight, maybe this red. Okay, now what we're going to do is we're going to go to our generate shades, and we only want 3. We want 3 shades, so we don't get too many brand colors. So I'm just going to set that to 3 and say generate shades. I'm then going to do the same on the secondary, generate shades. Same on the tertiary, generate shades. And there are our base colors done. Let's save that to the database and create some actual layout. So I'm going to call this my primary. Should call my brand primary actually. And in there, we're just going to put a heading and some text. And on that brand primary, I'm going to go to my background, right click, and I'm going to use my brand colors. I'm going to use that as my brand primary. On my heading, I'm going to go to my typography, right click, and I'm going to go down here in my, is it the ATF Framework? It is. The brand colors. I want to use my primary text. Same with the basic text here. Brand colors, we've got the primary text. Okay, it's going to duplicate that, and I'm going to call that my brand secondary. Okay, and for that, I'm going to go back to my background here, right click, and go to my brand secondary, and then on my text here, just working through these. Brand secondary text. Again, my brand secondary text. And these are all going to get created from the CPT. So that's that there. Okay, and then go to my brand tertiary. Okay, back into my background. Right click. Here's my brand tertiary. Typography. Brand tertiary text. And this one. Brand tertiary text. Hit the save. Now this is our defaults for a brand, set of brand colors for a business, right? The top colors up here in the header are our brand. It's our company. It's our website. These colors there are the user's company colors, the user's brand colors. Okay. So we've got to start here now. Now I'm going to now go into, I'm going to close some of these things up here so I don't get them confused. Okay. So I'm now going to go into WPCodeBox. I'm going to create a brand colors PHP, and that can be left as default as on plugins loaded. We're going to grab from this gist here all of that code, and we're going to paste that into there and save that and enable it. And this is going to bootstrap all of those colors. Again, we're not going to go through all this. I will quickly step through what it does, but not specifically going through all the code. All right, now we need to create our brands. So I'm going to go to my ACF, and we're going to create a new post type called brand. So this will be brands, brand. Okay, now the advanced configuration, I think we want to get rid of all of the stuff except for the title because we're not going to use it. In our visibility, we want to exclude from search because we don't want people searching our brands. And maybe we just use this paintbrush as our brand. Save that. All right, so we now have a Brands CPT. We need to add some fields to it. So we can easily add it through just clicking on this little link here. And what that does, it automatically sets our post type to brand here. So what we need first is a image. Okay, and that image is going to be our brand logo. Okay, that's okay. Close and add field. Add image, and that will be our brand footer logo. Close and add field. We need a color picker. Okay, now this needs to match what we did in WPCodeBox. So we've got, these are our slugs that it's going to find those colors from. So we need to make sure those slugs are correct. So we need to go back to here, and we'll call that brand, primary, color, tab, and we get a slugger brand primary color. We're going to give that a default, FF0000. We can change these later. We don't want transparency. We're going to leave it as a hex string. We don't need alpha channel. So we're going to close that field. We're now going to duplicate that field. We're going to call that our brand secondary color. We need to update the slug manually. Secondary color. And we'll just shift that to 00FF00. Close field, and we're going to duplicate that. And then we're going to call this our brand tertiary. And update our slug. Okay, and we're going to close that field. So now we've got brand logo, brand footer logo, we've got a primary color, secondary color, and a tertiary color. And these slugs here match what's in our code here for mapping those colors. Okay. Whoops. So save the changes. All right, now we have some brands. So let's go and actually create a couple. So I'm going to call this main brand. Main brand. Oh, man brand. Let's add a logo image. Use one of our lorem ipsum ones. Maybe we use the second one here. Select that, and we'll use the same one for the footer logo. Obviously, you make that different. You can also change these. So these are 1/3 wide, so they just go along. And let's set our brand colors to be this color. Maybe that color. And maybe that's a bit bright. We come down to there. There we go. There's our brand colors. I know it doesn't match the logo, but that's okay. Publish that. Create another one. Add a new brand. We're going to call this extra brand or second brand. And we're going to add the other image. Okay, add the same image again. All right, let's change the branding. Maybe we'll use the greenish color because of that logo there. And that's a bit bright, but we'll take some of that color out. Maybe it's kind of a bluish color. And that one there, maybe it's more towards blue. There we go. So we've got two brands. Now we need to relate this to users. So we're going to go back to ATF, go to our field groups, going to add a new one. And we're going to call this brand to user. You're not to user, or you just use the arrow to user for your to user. And we want this to be a post type or a post object. And we'll call this user brand. And again, this is important, the naming of the slug. I think in here, when we're looking at the brands, it finds it using users brand. Okay, so it's going to be users brand. So we're going to make sure that's correct. So we're going to call it users brand. The slug's got to match the code. Users brand. The post type we want is our brand. We just want the post ID. We don't, because we're not going to pull much from there. We're going to use the metadata. We're not interested in the post. We don't want the post content, all that sort of stuff. We just want the metadata. So we're just going to use the post ID. Okay. Now, the other thing I'm going to do in here is in the validation, I'm going to allow null so you can get rid of that not have a brand and just use the defaults. So hit save. Okay. Now, if we go to our user, on our user, we should have a selector. No, there's a step I missed. I think I didn't associate that. Let's go back to my field groups, brand to user. I forgot to change that. So I've got to change that to be the user form, or we want this user brand or user's brand to be on all of our users' forms. Save that. Back to our users, edit that user, and we have it there. So now I can select the user brand as being our main brand, update that. Now, let's see if that actually changes. Changes the colors. It did change the colors. Look at that. We've got different colors, which will be, if you look at our brand, so I'm flicking between screens here. I'm just using this laptop here. So here's our brands. If we go to the main brand, we have the blue, purple, and a green. If we have a look at our temp colors there, we've got the blue, purple, and a green. If we go to the user profile and say, actually, they belong to the other brand, for the second brand, update the profile, refresh. It hasn't updated. Okay, try that, refresh. And we have a different set of colors for that user, but our main colors don't change. And that's the reason what we did is create the second color set. So we've got our main brand colors, the ATF Framework. That is our brand. The brand colors, which we're then overriding from the CPT, that is their brand. So it's the company's brand for those users. All right. So that's that. Now the logo. Let's have a look at the logo. So to change the logo, what we're going to do is we're going to change this. Selecting properly. So we're going to create a div, and we're going to call this our brand logo wrapper. I'm just going to move that maybe above that logo, and inside there, we're just going to put an image there. We'll call this the brand logo. And we're just going to right click on our basic header again, run our class converter to give classes to those two. Okay, so in our brand logo wrapper, we're going to make that a query loop. So where's our content query loop? And we're going to make that query loop on our brand logo. Where is it? Well, let's just refresh this page. Maybe I hadn't refreshed the page since I added the relationship. Okay, so let's go back to our header, go back to this logo wrapper, into there, and yeah, it is. So I hadn't refreshed the page. So we're going to use our ACF post object. User brand is going to be our query loop, and our brand logo, we're going to use our dynamic data for our logo, and that's going to be our brand logo. Okay, so we've got both logos here at the moment, but what we want to do is we're going to create a couple of conditionals now. So first thing we need to do is get the ID of that. So I'm going to copy, where is the copy. There we go, copy bricks ID. So if I just click on the bricks, it's going to copy the ID to the clipboard. I'm going to go to our conditions, add a condition, and we're going to use dynamic data. And we're going to use our result, query result count. And then we're going to do a colon. I'm going to paste that ID in there, and there it is there, pasted into there. And we're going to say if the query result is not equal to is not equal to 0, then we want to show that logo. But we want to do the opposite, so we're going to grab that query there, and we want to go to our logo, add a condition to the logo, same thing, dynamic data. And in this case, we're going to say same query, but if it is equal to 0, so we have no logo, then we want to show that. So let's save that. And just refresh that page. So now we can see we have our logo for our brand. If I go into my profile and get rid of my brand, I'm going to get rid of that brand there, update the profile, and then reload. That work? It did not work. I'm having trouble with this updating at the moment. It must be my internet. So get rid of that, update, refresh. So I've got my default logo, my default colors, because I have no brand assigned to this user. If I go now to my brand and I go, okay, I actually want you to be part of the second brand, update the profile, wait for that to finish updating. Finished? No, it's still going. Okay, refresh here. I have the logo for my second brand and my colors for my second brand. If I go back and say, actually, we want the other brand, we want to be on the main brand, update the profile, go back, refresh, we have the logo for that brand and those colors. So you can see what you can do here is quite incredible, where you can have a single website as a hub with a bunch of users on it. It could be a membership site, and those members might belong to a certain organization or a certain company, and you want to give different colors depending on what organization or company they belong to. You simply create brands for those companies or organizations. You go to the user settings in here. Oh, I logged out. That didn't mean to log out. I'm going to go back there and log back in. You go into the user settings for that user, and you say this user belongs to that brand. It's pretty simple. I'm going to quickly show you what it's actually doing on the front end as well. So here's the brand. So if we look at the page source, what we'll see here is a root block here just before the end of the head. That's what our WPCodeBox code is generating. So if I go in here and have a look here at my WPCodeBox, so these brand colors here, this code here is pulling the brand associated with the user profile, and it's generating these overrides. So these override the defaults that we set in AT for the variables that start with dash dash brand dash. So let's have a look at the variables. If we go into the colors here, actually I might just expand that out a bit so we can see it a bit more. Go to my colors and go into my brand colors. So this one here is starting with the brand, whoops, I wish I could make that a little bit bigger, but brand dash. So brand dash and then primary will end up having a color in the front end, which is dash dash brand dash primary. Okay, so this name here, the primary, is prefixed by the prefix that you add in AT. So these here are the overrides from our brand. What it's also doing is you see here that it's got the brand primary text, it's got the brand secondary text, and the brand tertiary text. What that's doing in WPCodeBox is it compares the color as a background color with white text and black text, and whichever of the two has the best or the highest contrast ratio is the one, whatever it says to white or black. So this down here, this code down here is actually checking the contrast ratio of white and black against the color, and then whichever one has the highest contrast ratio is what we set here. So it's either going to be white or it's going to be black, depending on which one works best. So it gives you a better chance of having accessibility ratings. So all you have to do, really, if you do an A11Y test and your brand colors don't match, you just have to slightly darken or slightly lighten the brand color and then test it again. You don't have to find whether it's white or black that's going to work on it. You just have to change your brand color a little bit. All right, so that is it. I'm going to share this in a gist, the code box in a gist. It is important that you watch this and you make sure that when you create your ACF or meta box, link between the user profile and the brand, that your slug is users, plural, underscore brand. It's important when you create the, where are they? Down here somewhere. I did see them in here. When you create your slugs for your colors, make sure that they are, where are they in here? Just trying to find it. There we go. Make sure your slugs are brand underscore primary color, secondary, tertiary. They have to be these, otherwise they will not work. So you make sure the slugs are right, and then it will work. So I'm going to leave it here, and I'm going to clean this video up a little bit, and then post it for you. Yeah, okay, I'm going to leave it at that. Thanks, guys.